The Mack's Bible by James Dennis. What you need to know first. First and foremost, this book is not politically correct. If you're looking for a nice, friendly dating guide, then please look elsewhere. This book is based on personal experience and the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding I was given many years ago. Some may find this material offensive or even chauvinistic, but I can say with no hesitation that a true Mack has the utmost respect for women. However, a real Mack doesn't look at women in the same fashion as most people do. Many images of the modern Mack are incorrect and exaggerated. Macking has become a ridiculous spectacle instead of what it was designed to be. A man that has accepted a high level of manhood and lives within his manhood at all times. This book was not written to disrespect or bash women. Quite the contrary. This book was written to get scared males to leave their childish ways behind and become the best man that they are capable of being. Macking begins as an inward journey to clean up a lot of mess in the average male's head about himself and women. The average male spends a large part of their life trying to figure out women, and they usually fail miserably. I've taken it upon myself to give this layer of the game the proper attention and respect it deserves. Many people talk about it, but no one has ever plainly laid out the modern Mack game as I will in these pages. Within this book, I will be separating the male species into two classes, male and man. A male is simply a boy who has grown up. He doesn't understand manhood or his role as a man in everyday life, and he especially doesn't understand his role as a man when it comes to a woman. A man is a male that has claimed his manhood. He is responsible, confident, a leader, and a problem solver. He is everything he was created to be, for lack of a better way to say it. Macking has changed over the years, but the real, true tenets of this layer of game remain the same. Macking on the street level is the perfect balance between the pimp and the hustler. Beyond the streets, where Macking should be in this modern day and time, a Mack is a man who rules every aspect of his life with strong standards, principles, integrity, and focus. He is forever the ultimate gentleman and a woman's best companion. He understands her and himself on a level far beyond average. This is part of a Mack's power and appeal. This is also part of his mystery and mystique. This book was written to educate, not to advocate any particular lifestyle. As you become more familiar with this book, you'll find it a great reference guide. If you have an open mind, you'll find a lot of wisdom in these pages. But as always, this information will only benefit those that are truly ready to receive it. The Outlook, a foreword by the author. Let me sip this coffee real quick. When I look at the abundance of information in the arena of seduction, I see some good information, but also a lot of misinformation. The game of meeting, seducing, and holding women has been watered down. Although the principles of manhood are still pushed to the forefront, there are huge gaps in what people are now calling the game. Game has turned into how to sleep with women as fast as possible. To a Mack, women have a much higher value than what's in between their legs. And this is a huge area that modern game doesn't teach, because many don't have the necessary information. In this book, you will be given that information. The foundation of what I'm about to share with you was passed on to me by a great teacher. He was very powerful and imposing. Man, he was a very powerful and imposing man. I wouldn't go so far as to call him a mentor, but I learned a ton from him, and he helped shape the man I am today. Some males are good at business or have mastered a skill, trade, or sport. But when it comes to women, they are clueless. On the opposite side of the coin, some males are extremely good with women, but are very bad at managing other areas of their life. My teacher, however, was a multimillionaire businessman and an expert with women. He was the total package, for lack of a better term. What he shared many years ago with us young males concerning women was mind-blowing to me back then. At the time, my mind wasn't too focused on women to really appreciate it. But as I mastered the financial side of life, dealing with women became a fairly high priority. This man never considered himself a player or Mack, but you couldn't deny that if there was a definition of one, he was it. One of the first things that I remember he said about women was this: when dealing with women, you have to have the mentality of a pimp. This is a powerful statement, but only if you understand what the mentality of a pimp actually is. Let me clarify. Macks are not pimps. Pimps have prostitutes, hoes, and make money in their particular layer of the sex industry. A Mack, on the other hand, doesn't have hoes, although some Macks did, and is usually not involved in the sex industry in any capacity. A Mack is a refined gentleman that brings women into his life to build something for the future. He is both a ladies' man and a businessman. He has a grip on these two areas of life. He walks the fine line between hustler and pimp. This book is not about the financial aspects of macking. I have given some of that information in another book entitled Unlocking the Small Business Game. This book is about unraveling the misconceptions, mystery, and harmful perspectives you've been taught concerning women. It's these backward perspectives that have left many of you unsure, undecided, and overwhelmed when you even think about approaching attractive women. These thoughts break your confidence and therefore weaken your manhood. This book is the culmination of what I was taught and what I learned by actually using that information. I made a lot of mistakes, bad judgment calls, and lost many good women. But you won't have to go through much of that because I'm going to give you what I didn't have: a clear guide. It's been close to 20 years since I was first taught about this layer of the game, and it's just as relevant now as it was back then. In many regards, even more so. Men are not men anymore. They are just grown-up boys with no backbone, no integrity, lacking standards and principles. They're used by women, often toyed and played with. If this applies to you and you're fed up with it, then this is the knowledge you've been seeking. When I make the claim that this information has only been passed along to a select few, that's the truth. That wasn't a sales pitch or an embellishment. As you go through these pages, you will come across concepts that have to my knowledge never been given to the general public. I made every effort to give you this layer of the game in simplicity and without weakening it. I guarantee this book is well worth your time, money, and study. As you'll soon discover, this book will blow out the water any similar book on the subject. All this is information presented in a unique way. I will slowly introduce basic concepts and perspectives. As you continue to read, I'll build upon them. By the end of this book, everything will be put together and you'll behold something outstanding. So take your time and do the necessary work. Don't just read this, study it. This book means absolutely nothing if you don't use what's in it. Don't cheat yourself. Use this information and master this area of your life. You deserve it and you're worth it. I welcome you with open arms into the power and mystery of the modern Mack game. Book 1, Men, Women, and the Game. Chapter 1, The Natural Order. According to the original game, the story of Adam and Eve presented in the Old Testament of the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran is symbolic. Adam represents the mind of strength, while Eve represents the mind of weakness. Eve was easily tricked by the serpent, who some call the devil. He appealed to her vanity. In this story, the serpent was the one with game, and this game came from God because God was the creator of all things. The serpent was able to bypass Eve's logic and reasoning and move her on an emotional level. Her emotional decision caused her to do the one thing she was told not to do: eat from the tree of knowledge. Then she brought the fruit of that tree to Adam. Appealing to Adam's weaknesses, he fell weak. He then ate the fruit and broke the one and only commandment. This was the fall of man. Adam lost his position of authority because he listened to his weaker state of mind. In the game, this is a strong reminder that emotional reactions are generally weak and should be constantly checked by logic and reasoning. This should be done before any firm decision is made. Again, this is all symbolism. It's been said that one of man's greatest weaknesses is women or sex, and that's not true. One of man's greatest weaknesses is the way he thinks about himself. This reflects in the way he thinks about himself in relation to women. He has also been taught that in order to get women, he needs to be physically attractive, have money, nice possessions, and also make sacrifices for her. This is his perspective about women. The way you perceive something produces emotional responses. A male often makes bad decisions when it involves women, giving up all his important manhood in the process. With no knowledge about what manhood really looks like, he's susceptible to listening to his women and doing what she wants versus what he knows is best for himself. What most males have been taught that women want isn't true. And sadly, what most women have been taught they should want isn't true either. When we talk about the game of sexes, we have to go far beyond the outward appearance of things and look what's really going on inside a person's very nature. The game itself deals heavily in human nature. It's part psychology, sociology, but yet something more. The game is an anomaly. It can't be defined by normal descriptions or rules. It's not something you could put in a single category and label. Although this book is not about the original game, you have to understand what the game is in order to understand what is going on behind the scenes between males and females. The way I teach the game is in 9 principles. There are the foundations on which every game in existence is built on. I'll briefly give you those here because you'll need these vital points as we continue to explore just who and what a Mack is. You may want to bookmark this because I'll be making many references back to them throughout this book. The 9 principles of the original game. Principle 1, justice. Justice is word for word, action for action, and thought for thought. What comes back to the initiator is not just what they've done, but also everything that grows out of what they've done. Principle 2, purpose. The cause you choose must be higher than yourself. A purpose is the end destination of a journey. You must always know where you are headed or you will never get there. Principle 3, reciprocation. You must give in order to receive. You cannot get something for nothing and truly call it yours. You must earn the right to have or possess anything in life. Principle 4, perception. Perception is king and emotion is queen. How you look at things and events will determine what they mean to you. Perception can only open and close doors. Principle 5, value. The idea of value is one's life's most powerful motivators. When you value something, you will go through more trials to have it and accept more from it. If you do not value yourself, no one will value you. Principle 6, advancement, growth. Anything that does not grow and changes dies. In life, you should be constantly progressing, learning, and experiencing new things. Advancement is growth into bigger and better situations in life. Principle 7, responsibility. You can only be accountable for yourself. You are responsible for everything you know and every possession in your life. You must be self-reliant. Principle 8, contrast, duality. Everything is opposite. There are two extremes and a middle ground where the extremes meet. When you bring something into your life, it comes with both good and the bad. These two are an unbreakable pair. Principle 9, use. Everything has a use. Everything is a tool that has one or more specific jobs it can perform. If you do not use it, you lose it. Or if you use a tool incorrectly, it can break. These principles apply to everything outside of you and inside of you, as I'll explain to you as you learn about macking. These are tools that you will put in your toolbox to build you and your manhood. We won't be going into depth with every principle, although they're all relevant to becoming a Mack. However, we'll spend a lot of time with the most important ones. As you develop yourself, you'll start seeing the importance of the others. Think of these principles as laws of your personal government. You can stretch them a little, even bend them, but you should never break them. They are boundaries, lines that should never be crossed under any circumstance. You can do whatever you want inside these boundaries, but violating these have some very harmful side effects. The biggest is you'll create problems for yourself. The fewer problems in your life, the better. I'm sure we can agree on that. When you strip away all the mystery and glamour of macking, all that's left is raw manhood. And what is manhood exactly? Thousands of books and songs have been written on the subject, but it's still never been made completely clear. Not because people don't know it, but because they're afraid to say it. It's not considered politically correct, but here it is, as simple and plain as I can make it. When you conquer the feminine aspects of your behavior, you become a man. This is because you polarize to become a woman's exact opposite. As many of you are already aware, women are more emotional than men, while men are naturally more logical. There's nothing wrong with women being emotional. Honestly, it's a beautiful thing, and it will work to your advantage. They are that way for a reason, which I'll reveal to you later. If what I just said is true, then to truly become a man, you have to understand exactly what a woman's nature is. This will give you an aura of power that will make you naturally attractive to women. Women who are sincerely attracted to males want men. They don't want a male who behaves and thinks like a woman. Have you ever really listened to the way women talk about other women? Women seldom trust other women. They're also very judgmental of other women. They comment on their clothes, their bodies, their physical appearance, how they talk, and how they carry themselves. This stems from a woman's natural insecurities and jealousies. These are traits that a real man should never have. At the same time, which may sound like a contradiction right now, women are very easily influenced by other women. We'll explore this later in more depth as well. For now, you have to understand how the game works because you're going to set up what's called a program. It's through this program that you'll be able to attract women in your life and, more importantly, hold them. The street term for holding a woman is locking or handcuffing. As a Mack, it's not about just sleeping with women. Although you'll have more than enough power to do so, it's also about locking down women in your life for the long term. You should want to grow and build something meaningful with them. So what is the game? The game is a structure of power. It's the pyramid structure. The one with power sits at the very top, the capstone, and this power is secured by everyone beneath them. Think of any government, past or present. They run on this structure. The rulers make decisions that dictate how those below them live and function. Think of any corporation in the world. They also run on this structure. You have the president, CEO, who has the vision of the company. He's seldom seen, but his rules and regulations are followed without question by those below him. As long as those below him agree to follow his lead, he'll remain at the top of his pyramid and continue to wield power. Below the president, you have many levels of management: vice president, chief executive officer, regional vice presidents, etc. It's management's job to enforce the rules set forth by the president. They're also to keep those employees at the very bottom of the pyramid in line. How can this king lose power? If all the employees were to suddenly quit, the company would not produce what it needs for their customers. Also, if all the customers stop buying what the company produces, there's no cash flow and there's no lifeblood for the business to survive. In the pimp game, the pimp is the president of his company and the king of his kingdom, if you will. He has a bottom woman who functions as middle management. It's her job to train and keep other hoes in line and make sure they're following the pimp's program at all times. What does a pimp produce and sell? Sex. And the person who buys sex is called a trick or John. Without the trick, there's no business. If there's no business, there's no reason for the prostitute. They're selling something no one is buying. With no reason for the prostitute, there's no reason for management. This means there's no reason for the pimp. In other words, this pyramid structure of power will have no power. There's nothing being consumed, so what's the point in producing anything for sale? Meaning there's no reason for the company to exist. Think about you as an individual for a moment. Do you sacrifice to buy the latest electronic gadgets, clothes, and other hot new items on the market? If so, you're a trick. You're buying what someone else's power structure is producing. At your job, do you buy into the company's mission statement? Do you abide by their rules and policies without questions? Are you motivated by the company's pep talks? If so, you're a hoe.